Okay, let's get started again since we're a little low on time. We're a little low on time today. Kind of theories and the nurture environment learning theories, and remember the sort of third set of theories, like Piaget's theory or the theory, are these constructivist theories, where the idea is that there's an interaction between the child, what the child brings to the problem of learning, and the evidence and experience that the child gets. So the theory, which I mentioned has been applied to cognitive development, has also been applied to social development. And the person who's done the most of this is Carol Dweck. And I'll give you a more detailed example of one of her arguments. And then they're trying to make sense out of that information. And then they take that kind of intuitive to decide what they're going to do themselves. So children are in the world, they're looking around, and they're trying to make sense out of how the world works to inform their own behavior. Another example of this kind of approach comes from Ken Dodge, who studied behavior rather than just what they were like or what other people were like. And the famous Ken Dodge finding was that if you asked the aggressive children in a schoolyard, for example, what you did was show them just an interaction between two people that was sort of ambiguous. So someone bumps into someone else, and it could be that they were bumping into them on purpose, but it could just be an accident, they just bumped into them. The children who were aggressive themselves were much more likely to interpret the other person's behavior as if they were aggressive. So in other words, from the child's perspective, true for adults as well, from the child's perspective, it's not that I'm the mean kid, it's that I'm just surrounded by all these horrible mean kids, and I have to defend myself, which is why I act in the aggressive way that I do. Probably true for adults and for countries as well. So the idea is, the problem with the mean kids isn't just that they're mean, it's that they're interpreting the world around them as being this threatening mean place, and that they have to defend themselves in this threatening mean environment. So how you interpret or attribute other people, how you think about what other people are like, is obviously going to play a big role in the way that you behave and the way you think. And a classic example of this is that Carol Dweck has done, which I think I mentioned in this class before, has to do with intuitive theories of intelligence. So what Carol discovered was that some children, particularly children in American culture, tend to think that intelligence is something that you're born with and you can't change very much. So that if you're smart or if you're good at math, you're just born being smart and good at math, and there's nothing that you can really do to change it. And other children, more often, say children in Asian cultures, think that whether you're intelligent or good at math is something that you can change. If you study and if you work very hard, you can actually make yourself smarter, or you can make yourself better at math. And as you can imagine, those different attributions, sort of independent of the reality, make a big difference in how those children, say, perform on a math test. Because the children who think that you can do something to change your math performance are more likely to study than the children who think that how well you do at math is just a feature of your innate intelligence, and there's not really very much that you can do to change it one way or another. And Carol has shown across an incredibly wide range of different contexts and studies that these kind of intuitive theories, particularly this difference between thinking about traits as being deep intrinsic parts of people that you can't change versus thinking of them as things that could be altered by effort or by the environment, ends up having really strong implications for the way that people behave in a very wide range of different circumstances. And finally, the kind of equivalent of the social constructivist theory, remembering cognitive development, is, and in some ways an even stronger influence in social development, is the idea that children are imbibing the cultural context in which they find themselves. So one of the big contrasts between cognitive development and social development is that in cognitive development, there's a world that's out there, and that world is the way it is, and your job is to try and figure out how that world works. But for social and cultural life, it's a little more complicated because, of course, you're actually making the world have the structure that it has. Social development than there is in cognitive development. In cognitive development, you're kind of stuck with the world, and the question is, how well do you understand it? In social development, you're not just stuck with the world, you're not just understanding the world, but you're also participating in it. And you're also deciding how much do you want to participate in this particular world or this particular context. And again, so very often this work emphasizes cross-cultural and historical differences in the way that children grow up with the ideas that they have about social life when they're in different cultural or historical contexts. So how you understand the social world might be really different if you were growing up in Berkeley and Hong Kong, and very different if you're growing up in 2013 and 1913 and 1613. And let me give an example of this, which I mentioned before. For example, whether you are compliant, whether you do what people want when they say it, or whether you argue with them or resist them, that's a good example of something where it isn't as if there's a kind of absolute answer about whether you should agree with people and do what they want or resist and argue with them. Sometimes it's good to resist what people tell you. Sometimes it's good to do what people tell you, to be obedient and compliant. And children vary a lot in different cultures and in different contexts. Cultures vary a lot in how much they emphasize being compliant and doing what other people want versus how much they emphasize being resistant and arguing. My example of this is always, I remember walking through the streets of Berkeley and seeing a 4-year-old who had a t-shirt on that said, "Question authority." And I remember thinking, you know what, not a good idea for 4-year-olds, right? You know, they're going to question authority, fine. I don't think you really need to tell them to question authority. But that was a good example of how, in this context of Berkeley, that said question authority, or at least not in most places in Beijing. So that's an example of all the different kinds of theoretical approaches, and the next time we're going to start talking about how children actually are developing.